My name is Daniel Moneta. I'm one of the co-founders of MMB Networks in Toronto, Canada, and also the marketing work group chair for the Zigbee Alliance.
Hi, my name is Yianni. I'm one of the founders of the Philips Hue lighting system, and I'm the head of technology for home systems at Philips Lighting.
So thanks for taking the time to talk to us. We want to talk to you a little bit about Philips' choice of Zigbee and how that's impacted Hue and the success of the program, and also how Philips and the Hue team sees the connected home. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask is, why did you set out to make a connected product in the first place?
Yeah, so the reason we really set out to make lighting connected is born out of frustration that people take lighting for granted. Right? We do amazing things with lighting in different industries, different parts of the world, but normal consumers, it's always been a bit difficult to appreciate what they mean for you and to really experience it. And that's really what we wanted to do by taking the humble light bulb and connecting it to the internet.
And you spoke about the difference that you're making. Can you talk about some of the ways that you've seen that you've made a difference in people's lives, or things that people have done with it that really made you feel like you were changing lives, changing the world?
Yeah. So I think there is a huge wealth of stories from consumers. I mean, there are the widely used use cases. I think we are making people's homes more beautiful all over the world. And we're always really happy to see the ways people are actually using it to decorate and make their homes more personal. But there are also some fantastic stories that come from the community of people using it in surprising ways. One of my favorite use cases is how the hearing impaired community is using it to give themselves personalized ringtones for the first time so they can tell who's calling them.
Is there a use that you've heard of that was one that was just totally unexpected?
I think the wackiest use case, that is the one I always like to talk up, is an app called Exoplanets for Hue that lets you experience what lighting conditions would be like on any known planet in the universe. Very cool.
Okay, I'll have to try the surface of the sun one. How do you use Hue at home?
So I have an 18-month-old daughter. So it's been quite a journey of sleep deprivation in the last 18 months. And one of the things that I've appreciated the most about Hue over the last months is really how I can have different light settings at different times of the day, which interact with my physiology. So we are woken up by blue light. It triggers hormone production in our brain. So the worst thing you could do, both for yourself and for your daughter, is just turn on normal light, which has a blue spectrum and wakes people up. So what I have in my home is actually the lights. When I get up in the night, they automatically go to a dim reddish stumble light setting, which interferes less with my sleep and, more importantly, doesn't wake my daughter up more than she already is.
That's a fantastic use case. Pretty much anything that you can do to make parents' lives a little bit easier is probably a very desirable use case.
Indeed, indeed.
From the concept of the Hue program in the beginning, or the desire to make a connected light, how did you go about doing that? How did you do that within Philips?
So we had the opportunity to really create Hue as part of an internal startup. So we had quite a lot of freedom to really innovate outside the normal confines of what we do inside Philips. And what we actually did is we actually ran a lot of tracks that would often be sequential in parallel. So we were actually thinking about and researching the core use cases and value proposition in parallel with building first prototypes of the system, in parallel with talking to retailers where we could potentially sell it, and also thinking about what the next steps would be. So that enabled us to have very close interaction. We didn't know we were going to make the product able to do colors and not just tunable white until we heard some of the first responses from interviews with consumers saying, actually, that would be really exciting and would give me a lot more stories to talk about. So it was really something that worked hand in hand, thinking what we could build in parallel with what we should build.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of storytelling when it comes to the ways that people are using Hue and the way that people are using lighting.
No, I mean, it's absolutely crucial to tell the story. I think what a lot of companies do less well is they focus on the technology. And in the end, making a product connected doesn't add any value to anyone. You have to tell the story about what that means towards people. And so a lot of our energy and a lot of the way we talk towards consumers is really just telling them, okay, this is how lighting can enrich your lives and making that very tangible and easy to understand.
So you've talked now about a couple of ways that I guess your approach to product development and marketing has changed. Have you found that creating a connected product has required significant changes to how you develop a product, how you market it, how you support the product with consumers?
So it's been quite an iterative process to get where we are today. There are definitely some things which are different to what we were used to with Philips lighting. We have a lot more access to information about what's going on. That enables us to do a better job of customer care, a better job of road mapping, because we can see what use cases are working or not in real time. Gives us insights into our supply chain so we can optimize that better. But all of this has kind of grown out of opportunity. From the start, being a startup, we were able to do things a bit differently. So we are kind of digital native within a big company, which also helped us a lot with kind of embedding how we do ongoing software development, how we think about products as never being finished, as being the first version, which we keep making better in the field for existing consumers, how we think about openness of our system to enable other people to interact with it. These kind of things we could have natively, but that learning has really bled into other functions iteratively over time.
Yeah, it really seems to make a connected product is to engage in a long-term relationship with consumers. I think, consumers are in the traditional product world. A product has 3 features on the box. At the store, it has 3 features on the box at home. The moment you connect something to the internet or a smartphone, the expectation is that 3 features will turn into 5 features, which will turn into 10 features, and that this will continue to operate for the entire lifespan.
Indeed, it's definitely the way we see it. We really see that products we've already sold, they are just opportunities to have more conversations with consumers. So we really see that people that are buying into Hue are not buying into a product, they're buying into a journey of discovery with us where they will learn new use cases, new ways of using, which ultimately lead them to buy more products over time. And so we really try and keep this ongoing relationship and dialogue with our consumers.
Okay. So it seems like you've really taken the approach of putting the consumer first and thinking about how they're using it. And, I very much agree with your philosophy of not just choosing particular technologies for technology's sake, but you did have to choose technologies along the way. So what was the connection from the consumer stories that led you to use Zigbee as the communication standard for the product?
So there were a few reasons which really led us towards the Zigbee choice, and it was a choice that we took very deliberately. So the key thing that we found out is one of the big barriers to adoption in smart homes, it's never been easy. So we definitely needed a technology which people actually didn't need to think about, didn't need to notice too much. So there are a few facets in Zigbee which we really liked for that. One, there's a lot of different ways where you can arrange easy setup. And you can have this discovery for new products connected to a hub, but you can also directly link a remote towards a light with touch linking, which gave us a lot of flexibility offering easy setup. But the other thing is we didn't want our consumers to have to think about networking. They should never actually have to think, I need a repeater in this place to be able to extend the signal up to my attic. And the nature of the mesh network in Zigbee and how well that performs to self-organize to give yourself a really good, reliable coverage all over the home was really a winning thing. Next to that, this was a big bet for us with Philips. We wanted to take it on a journey. So we wanted to choose a technology where we had our options open and we also had the opportunity to influence and drive the standard over time. So the openness of Zigbee, the fact that there are multiple silicon vendors working on it, the fact that we can participate in the standardization and evolve it over time was really important to us as well.
So that makes a lot of sense, and certainly there are multiple technologies that you can choose from in the space for creating a connected device, but one of the advantages of Zigbee is that organization, is that openness, is the ability to become a member and contribute to the standard and development. How have you found being a Zigbee member, and what kind of value has that brought to Philips?
So I think first and foremost, being a Zigbee member has really enabled us to use a fantastic technology that has been refined and improved over the years inside our products, which lets us offer reliable products which remain relevant, interoperable 5 years after they've launched. We've also found it to be very open towards new ideas and challenges. So we're very active inside the Zigbee Alliance. We're working closely with them to extend the concept of certification, so we can enable third parties to build luminaires based on our modules. We collaborated with them very closely on the launch of Zigbee 3.0 to broaden and improve the interoperability with other products. So it's been a good experience to kind of grow the standard along with the needs of the product, while actually keeping this maturity and interoperability that we love with Zigbee.
And you talked about continuing to mature the technology. So Zigbee 3.0 is now available, and Philips is committed to updating the Hue platform to 3.0. What triggered that decision for you?
So I think the key thing for Zigbee 3.0, and also why we were lobbying for it inside the company, is we want Zigbee to be the standard that is used for smart home automation, because that makes consumer choice simpler. Right? If we want smart products to be a standard thing that everyone has inside their home, people are not going to spend the time thinking what works with what. And Zigbee 3.0, I think, is a great step forward in terms of unifying all the different flavors of Zigbee behind a single common interoperable banner, which makes that choice much easier and simpler for everyone else to jump on board. So for us, that was really the motivation to do it. It was to make the future one where consumer choice is simpler.
So you've talked a lot about consumer choice and interoperability. How is Zigbee affecting your decisions or your strategy around working with other companies and other technologies and product vendors in the space?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it gives us a lot of choice and freedom to work with the best players in the industry, and that starts from the people who provide the silicon and the software stacks, where we can actually work and find the best solution across all of these spaces. Having a single vendor does not breed good products. You need that competition to keep everyone sharp and always innovating, and so we've been able to work with a lot of great players in the space to continue to set the bar higher and higher. It also has given us the opportunity to actually have our products interoperate with products from other companies. So we recently announced that we would be bundling some of our Hue bulbs together with the new Amazon Echo Plus, which for us is a fantastic way to make a very easy first experience with smart home, which can then lead to the richer experiences that we offer with the Philips Hue Bridge if you extend to that later. So it's really given us a lot of new business opportunities, but also meant the technology keeps getting better because competition breeds innovation.
So you mentioned an interesting part of the advantages of using an open technology, which is not just the ability to work with other finished products out there, but the access to a global supply chain. Was that a major consideration in your choice of technology, and have you been able to leverage that global ecosystem of vendors and support for Zigbee? Hue is a product that we sell very broadly. I think we're sold now in 32 different countries, and that's constantly expanding. So having a technology that we can roll out anywhere in the world, where it's certified to be used there, is really useful. It makes our ability to roll out in new countries much easier and more simple. In terms of, let's say, local players that we can integrate with, I think that's had a less strong impact so far. The major players that are active in smart home are fairly centralized in Western Europe and North America at the moment. But I think as things continue to progress, this will always give us more opportunities. Also, when we're working with bringing other people into our ecosystem, it's a much easier sell to persuade people to use our lighting modules, which are Zigbee compatible, if we can tell the story that it works with Philips Hue, but you're not completely locked in. So we'll also work with other relevant players in your local markets, and generally that's always true. So it gives people a larger addressable market, even though they want to work with some particular players at first.
Sure, and it's not necessarily that they don't want to work with us, and that's the main reason, but it hedges their bets.
I think there's a lot of focus there seems to be in the market about obviously using the smartphone as a centerpiece for the home and having technologies that are in the smartphone also be in devices. Mm-hmm. Do you find it to be a disadvantage that there isn't, let's say, a Zigbee chip in a smartphone?
So I think there are certain use cases where that would, of course, be useful. But for what we see, the core use cases we really benefit from having a central place inside the home, which is running our control logic, that is making sure all the products interact perfectly with each other, which would be very challenging to do with this direct interaction. The fact that we are able to, from a smartphone, configure how a sensor interacts with the light is very powerful because it's a rich interface, but the actual interaction between those products, you don't need to have that involvement in the smartphone. It's not necessarily relevant. So I don't see it as a blocking issue for anything, and I think Hue is a testament for how we can actually build fantastic products which are actually made better by having more intelligence inside the home.
So lighting is a pretty competitive space. What makes the Hue different, and how is it going to continue to maintain an edge in the market?
So I think a few things that we think we do really well is we have a single-minded focus on the use cases, the way people are interacting with the user, and framing those so that they really make sense and are understandable. I think nobody else is taking it from a user interaction perspective so strongly as us. Next to that, we have focused and successfully built a very broad and rich ecosystem of products and integrations. We have over 70 different form factors of lights in our portfolio now, together with the relevant control accessories, with over 700 applications that can interact with those to drive different use cases. And this is really leading in smart home.
Well, I think that's what's important, that focus on the stories is important. You see a lot of connected devices that are sort of connected for the sake of being connected.
Exactly.
And really they don't do much more than the manual version used to be. They've just sort of moved the control point, and that's somewhat useful in and of itself, but you really want to enable things that you simply could not do before with connected devices.
And I think, to build on that, if you ever think what you're competing with lighting, you're competing with a wall switch. That's actually pretty easy. You have to work quite hard to actually build something that is as easy as that. So it's not so much about the convenience piece always, but it's more about enriching the use cases, doing more with lighting.
Right. And I think, you raise a really interesting point, and I tend to talk about this a lot myself, that this is really the first time where we've taken technology that we tend to have a lot of patience and tolerance for when things don't quite work right, and putting it into devices that we don't even think of as technology anymore, that are just so dead simple, like a light switch and a light bulb. And so, how do you make sure that your products maintain that level of reliability? Because at the end of the day, I need to be able to turn my lights on and off while also offering this added value in these new stories.
No, indeed. So it's a constant focus of us for how we can make getting these richer lighting experiences as easy as possible. The benchmark for simplicity is the light switch. So everything we do is about making richer lighting experiences as easy to experience as possible. And I think the key things that we do on that is we really focus on giving people a choice in what's a natural way to interact for them, whether it's a motion sensor, a physical switch, an app, or a voice platform. We give them that choice, what's easy. And we also help them with rich explanatory content in our app to discover and find the use cases that make sense for them.
So do you feel that your choice of Zigbee was the right one for Hue and for the vision, and continues to be?
Yeah, so I think the success we've had shows that it was the right decision. I think we would make the same decision again today. Where there's been a lot of changes, we would still choose Zigbee. Even 6-7 years after we made that initial choice, there still is no other truly open mesh networking standard that offers interoperability in a mature way. That is still a unique value proposition of Zigbee, and I don't see anyone coming close to that in the near term.
So that raises the question for me is, when you're starting off developing a connected product and you're a product manager, are there particular criteria that you're looking at when it comes to technology beyond just that it can perform in the way that you're expecting it to?
So I think this is a key change you have to make when thinking about connected products, because you shouldn't make these choices for the product today. Mm-hmm. You need to think where this product is going to go in the future. So it's actually a very big bet to make these choices, right? Because it's very hard to change them later if you're successful. So you have to have a little bit of, let's say, future gazing to think, how is this going to evolve? but also you need to realize that that future is to some extent under your control. Right? And that's a great thing with Zigbee as well. You can contribute towards that future and make it fit your vision. So you can also shape the technology if you're allowed to contribute towards it.
And you talk about making that big bet. And I think one of the interesting things about this industry is that we're putting technology products out there in an industry that's used to 18-month replacement cycles. We're buying new phones and new tablets and new laptops, fairly frequently. But what is the lifetime expectation of a Philips Hue bulb?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So we design our products from a hardware perspective to last for 15,000 hours. Typical usage would be up to 15 years. We don't give guarantees on that, but that's what they are designed for. Now, that shows you how long we have to actually work on the interoperability for, and it's very hard to give any hard promises on that. It's very hard to predict what the world's going to be like 5 years from now in such a fast-moving industry. So what we really aim for in terms of software interoperability, making sure that products keep working with each other over time, is at least a duration of 5 years. The products will keep working with each other, which of course we have the ambition to go to the full hardware lifetime of the product.
And do you believe that working with open standards makes it much more likely that you'll be able to continue to support those products for their entire lifetime?
So, if we achieve our goals of making these standards successful, then definitely that is the case. And by contributing also, we can be the voice for the millions of products which are already rolled out in the field to actually keep those relevant and connected. So yes, having standards which you have control over gives you that safety net.
So it really seems like Philips is achieving its vision. It's been 5 years since the release of Hue. Has it been more interesting than you expected and more successful than you expected?
So, of course, we had huge aspirations when we started the product 5 years ago, but it's great to take the 5-year anniversary as a moment to reflect back on everything we've achieved and all of the ways in which we are changing how people are using lighting. So we couldn't be happier with the success so far.
That's great. Well, congratulations. Thank you for doing this interview, and we're very happy to have you as members and leaders in the Zigbee Alliance.
You're most welcome.